When I was a little boy, one of my biggest joys was to listen to my grandmother tell me folk tales and fairy tales and wonder tales. I either sit on her lap or she came to my bed and told me amazing stories, and my imagination went to an incredible place of joy and wonder. There were wonderful stories for sure, but the stories that I really like hearing were the stories that my elders told around the dinner table, the personal stories that my father, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunts would tell when they visited. And I was the only kid in the family that would stay at that dinner table, and I would listen and listen and listen. Now, they told about trials and tribulations, adventures, travels. And those stories taught me, I guess, how to be a good person. They told me how to be a person that did good. They told me how to conduct myself in life. Now, unfortunately for me, in some ways, there were no stories told about anything related to being queer. And I was gay. And I knew back then that I was gay. There was nothing affirming about the queer experience while those stories were being told. So when I found out that my uncle, my great uncle Eduardo, who was the best storyteller at that dinner table, he was a journalist, he told stories about having traveled all over the world. He never once told anything about him being gay. When I found out he was gay, I was disappointed. I would have loved to hear stories about how he picked up men, what parks he went, cruising, his trials and tribulations. How was he navigating the whole thing of not being accepted by the family? It would have helped me tremendously as a gay person in my growing up. So when I grew up, I had no point of reference, like many of the queers of my age group, and we just had to create our own pathway of walking to this world when nothing was really affirming. And also, we had to fight stigma at the same time. And in my time, we had to find the stigma of AIDS and HIV. So it was tough. Now, when I became a storyteller, and I was telling stories, I was telling wonder tales and fairy tales, and some of the stories my grandmother had told me, I was yearning, and I was desperately wanted to tell stories about the queer experience, about my queer experience. But I wasn't even sure if there were any other queer or gay storytellers or lesbian storytellers out there. So I went on a bit of a journey because I wanted to have the opportunity to be able to tell those stories. And lo and behold, I found a few people, queers and allies alike, who were willing with me to create a space where we could tell those stories. Now, over a round of 3 beers, and in storytelling, everything good comes in threes. We decided, me and another friend decided to come up with an event. And we didn't know what to call it. It was going to be a queer storytelling event. We didn't know what to call it. And I remember suddenly a friend of mine in university, every time he drank, he said, "Beers in your ears." And I thought, hey, what about calling it Queers in Your Ears? And this is what we call the event. Now, there was an opening that year in 1997 at the Storytelling Festival of Toronto, where the storytelling, the storytellers would create their own event. And it was called French Week. And so we proposed this event and went out recruiting queers for this event, and allies as well. So a good friend of mine, Claire Knobs, a storyteller, she's a lesbian, joined. My friend David Bayman, who's gay, joined. The great late Helen Carmichael Porter, a great storyteller, she joined. And another friend of ours, Jean Buba, who was an ally, joined. And we were going to stage Queers in Your Ears at Bar Babylon, it's defunct now, on Church Street for the first time. Now, we advertised on Extra and Now Magazine and did all the old-style media advertising, knowing that maybe we'll get a small audience, maybe some LGBT people, some maybe curious people, but lo and behold, the time came in February of 1997, and the place filled up. It was sold out event, standing room only. We had to turn people away. It was incredible. Now, the event went so well that we got excited and we decided to stage it again next year. And two friends of ours, Ken Setterington, another storyteller, and Jeffrey Canton, joined up the group. And after that event at Buddies in Bad Times, the second time, our event got cemented in as a part of the storytelling community in Toronto. We felt great about that. Now, we had some growing pains, as any group that were working with cultural things and identity things. We had some growing pains. We also felt that we needed to expand our group and not just have ourselves. We were four men in the group and only one lesbian. We needed to expand the group, and so other lesbians joined up the group. And we also felt that we needed to expand not only the repertoire that we had, which was mostly literary stories. We had to tell deeper stories, more personal stories. And we started to work on that. So somebody like Evelyn Perry, who's a director of Buddies now, joined, and Michelle Clark, a social worker, joined, and some youth from the Buddies youth group joined our group, and we went on stage in the shows. And as we grew as storytellers, we were telling deeper and more personal stories. We went to deeper and painful places to be able to tell stories of the queer experience. Don't get me wrong, we also went to some of those frothy and humorously queer places, and we told humorous stories about ourselves. And as we went along, we expanded our range. We're not only telling on Church Street or bars in that area, we told at the festival and other places across the city. Now, we felt good about the work that we were doing. We felt good about telling our stories, and we felt that we needed to do something a little bit different. So we, again, expanded our repertoire for more people of color to join the group, because although I'm Latino, I'm Latino light, and the optics is not that good. So we expanded the group, and we included other voices. And also we have included some trans people in our group. Now, this year, Queers on Years celebrated 20 years of storytelling in Toronto. 20 years of queer storytelling in Toronto. Thank you. And since 2013, we have moved into the gay and lesbian archives, and it really have felt like home, telling stories in a place that is a repository of so many queer stories. And we celebrated by having 3 performances. We did a retrospective of our 20-year experience. We asked our audience what it had been like for them. Some of them have been with us for the last 20 years. Some of them have just arrived. And we asked them what it was like for them to have been part of this experience. And invariably, queer or not queer alike, said this that made me feel really good. They said that being at that event had felt like being at a grand queer dinner table where stories have been shared, and they had not only learned about the queer experience, but they had learned about themselves. And what that makes me feel immensely great about having created this space, I know the work is not done. I know the work is not done, but I'm really, really happy about how this story is unfolding so far. Thank you.